This is the story of a woman most people never noticed, and everything she silently carried so others could shine. Her name was Grace, and the name suited her in ways she never intended. Grace grew up in the eldest of 6 children in a small town where money was a visitor that rarely stayed long. From the age of 12, she understood something that no child should have to understand so soon. That someone had to hold everything together, and that someone was going to be her. She cooked, she cleaned, she walked her younger siblings to school, while her own shoes had holes in the soles she covered with folded paper. She was 14 when she first skipped a meal so her youngest brother could have a full plate. She didn't tell anyone. She just went to bed and called it not hungry. By the time Grace was 22, she had put 2 of her siblings through secondary school. She had nursed her mother through an illness that lasted 3 years. She had buried her father with money she saved coin by coin in a tin under her bed, and she had never, not once, asked anyone to notice. When Grace married at 26, people said she was finally getting her turn. Her own home, her own life, her own story. But Grace didn't know how to stop giving. She had 3 children in 4 years. Her husband worked hard, but the money was never quite enough. So Grace worked hard too. During the day, she cleaned offices in the city center. 3 buildings, 4 hours each, on her feet the entire time. In the evenings, she came home and cooked, helped with homework, attended school plays, listened to problems, solved what she could, held what she couldn't. On weekends, she took in sewing, hemming trousers, fixing zippers, letting out waistbands for women in the neighborhood. She charged very little, sometimes nothing at all. Her husband once asked her why she didn't charge more. She said, "Because I know what it feels like to need something you couldn't afford." He didn't ask again. What almost nobody knew about Grace was this: she could draw, not just well, but extraordinarily. As a young girl, her teachers had pulled her aside and told her she had a gift. One teacher, a woman named Mrs. Adora, had written a letter recommending Grace for an art scholarship in the city. Grace never sent the application. Her mother needed her at home that year. The scholarship deadline passed. Mrs. Adora asked what happened. Grace smiled, and she said she had decided it wasn't for her. She still had the letter, folded inside an old Bible, for 40 years. She never drew again after that. Not because she stopped loving it, but because something somewhere along the way, she had decided that her life was not about what she loved. It was about what was needed. And what was needed was always someone else. Grace's youngest child, her daughter Amara, graduated from university on a bright Saturday morning in June. First in her family to ever hold a degree. Grace sat in the 3rd row, wearing the same dress she had worn to her son's graduation 2 years before. She had let it out slightly at the sides, added a new button herself. Nobody noticed. When Amara walked across that stage, Grace didn't cry immediately. She pressed her lips together, folded her arms, folded her hands in her lap, and breathed. She just breathed. And then, quietly, without making a sound, the tears came. Not tears of sadness, tells us something that doesn't have a simple name. The feeling of watching something you poured your whole life into finally bloom. Amara found her afterwards in the crowd, drew her arms around her and whispered, "Mommy, everything I am is because of you." Grace held her daughter for a long time, and for the first time in as long as she could remember, she allowed herself to receive something. She stood there and received it. I have been thinking about Grace for a long time, about what life means, about what it costs, about whether it was worth it. And here is what I keep coming back to. There is a kind of love that never announces itself. It doesn't post about what it gave up. It doesn't keep a record of the meals it skipped. It doesn't remind you of the dreams it folded away inside an old Bible. It just shows up every morning before the sun and carries. Grace never became the artist Mrs. Adoba believed she could be, but she created something. 3 children who know how to love without conditions. A husband who learned generosity by watching her live it. A neighborhood full of women who felt seen because she charged them nothing. And a daughter standing on a stage holding a degree, whispering "thank you" to the woman who made it possible. That is not a small life. That is one of the greatest works of art I have ever encountered. Grace painted with her years. And what she created will last long after the canvas is gone. There is a Grace in your life. Maybe she is your mother. Maybe she is your grandmother. Maybe she is a woman you pass every day without really seeing. Today, don't just watch this and move on. Call her, text her, tell her you see her, and if the story moved you, share it. Because somewhere out there is a tired woman who needs to know that her sacrifices were not invisible, that it mattered, that she matters. This light was made to be carried. Pass it on, subscribe and follow for more.